Need to restock inventory, cover seasonal dips, or manage payroll? OnDeck's small business line of credit provides immediate access to funds, up to $200,000, exactly when your business needs it. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and full control over repayment, you can tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. Apply today at OnDeck.com, and funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Hello, I'm Sarah and welcome to the Reddit and listener story episode of the Whispering Woods podcast. I've got 6 stories to share today. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/the Whispering Woods, where for a small fee you can listen ad-free, and on the higher tier, which is the Banshee tier, you get an extra mini episode every week. Right, we'll get straight into it. So 6 stories. And I'd like to thank Sublime Lime 1 for letting us share your story. I really appreciate it. Are you ready for the first story? Grandmother calling my name, but she's not in the room. So, today I arrived at my grandmother's, and she was upstairs in the shower. I sat at the table with my mother waiting for her, when all of a sudden we hear her shout my name. We both jumped and ran to the stairs because her shout sounded like she'd fell or something bad had happened. It turned out to be nothing. She was adamant she didn't shout or even call my name. We brushed it off as maybe a shout from a neighbour or someone on the street. That was this morning. It happened again this evening. I was shaving my face in the bathroom and heard my grandmother shout my name. She was shouting as if she was downstairs, perhaps calling me down for something. I initially believed it and thought she'd come for some milk or sugar or something like that, as she has the key to the house. I called down to ask what she wanted, but there was nothing. She wasn't downstairs, and after calling her, I found out she was at home with my grandfather. This has creeped me out a lot. I truly heard her voice. It was unmistakably her voice and her way of shouting for me. On both occasions, the voice shouts my name twice and then stops. I'm not sure what this is or how to stop it. Any advice on what it is or what to do would be much appreciated. Not sure about this one. I don't know if anybody has any ideas of what this could be. I did think about sort of third voice. Is that what it's called? Can't remember now. Too late for me. Or a doppelganger, perhaps. Please excuse me because my voice is still not quite there, but it's a lot better than it has been. I still keep having massive coughing fits as well. But yeah, really interesting story and would freak me out for sure if I heard somebody's voice who wasn't there. I mean, there's so many things, aren't there? You know, you've got your skinwalkers, your mimics, all sorts of things that pretend to be something else. But great story. Thank you so much again. And our next story is from Deeds Geo. Thanks so much for letting us share your story. We really appreciate it. Are you ready for the second story? My grandfather visited me 8 years after his death. I hope this is the right place to post this. I'm sorry it's a long read. My grandfather, Mum's side, passed away in 2016. We were on our yearly family beach trip. He went on a morning walk, took a dive, and got stuck in a riptide. It was a very traumatising event. We haven't gone on a family beach trip since. I was 17 at the time. Prior to us going on this trip, I was having terrible thoughts and dreams about someone dying. We're Greek, and it's a superstition that if you see an owl during the day, it means death. I saw 2 owls the days leading up to the trip. I tried not to think about it. I thought maybe I was subconsciously looking for signs of death because of the dreams I'd been having. The week after the funeral, my grandfather visited me in my dream. Many, many years ago, he worked on boats and travelled the seas. In my dream, we were on a boat. It was storming hard and the waves were huge. I was crying and my grandfather was sitting on a chair, enjoying a glass of his favourite whiskey. I asked him why he was so calm, and he laughed and told me, "Because everything is just fine, and I need to relax." Recently, I've been going through a hard time with life. A lot has been happening. My grandfather visited me again. He was driving us up a parking deck in his Tacoma, and there were no cars around. He asked me what was going on, and I told him. I asked him how he was doing. He laughed and told me that he is happy and fine, but he's here to talk about me. He told me that not everything in life is negative, and I need to stop worrying so much. We made it to the top of the parking deck, and there was a huge door with a bright light on the other side. When I went to get out of the truck, there was a random wall that wouldn't allow me to open the door. I asked him why I couldn't get out. He chuckled and told me it wasn't my time. He got out of the car and told me to tell everyone he says hi and that he's just fine, and then I woke up in tears. I'm not religious. I believe that something is out there, but I'm not sure what it is. But I do believe that my grandfather, wherever he is, watches over me. I believe that he popped in to remind me that not everything has to be so bad. I can really relate to this story, and I'm so sorry to hear about your grandfather dying whilst you're on holiday. That must have been an awful experience. I've had a few friends who went on holiday and died, and I know how much it affected me deeply. So when I was in my early 20s, I had some friends who went off to, I think I may have spoken about this before, and they went off to see Count Dracula's castle on like a helicopter excursion, and it ended up crashing. Unfortunately, it was like a whole family that died, and it was just awful. And I'm terrible now. When anybody goes on holiday, I'm sort of dreading it because you never know what's going to happen. And I think it was the naivety of when I was young. You just didn't think that people die on holiday, you know? I'd never heard of the superstition surrounding owls either. I thought that was really interesting. And it seems that it was true in this instance, unfortunately. But I'm glad it sounds like your grandfather is visiting and sort of saying, come on, everything's all right. Because I think sometimes we need that in life, don't we, when there's too much doom and gloom going on. Right, our third story is from Taco Choosegray. Thanks so much for letting us share your story. We really appreciate it. Are you ready for the third story? There's something in my little sister's room. I'm 26 years old and have lived away from home for close to 7 years. I grew up living with my mum, stepdad, and little sister, who is 13 years old. Last weekend, I drove out and visited my parents and sister. I had some drinks with my mum and stepdad and just talked about life and work. I eventually realised I would have to stay at their place overnight because I couldn't drive due to the drinking. When I asked if I could borrow a pillow from my little sister so I could sleep on the couch, she told me to just sleep in her bed because she was going to sleep on the couch. I insisted that I was fine to take the couch, but she told me she's been sleeping on the couch every night for around 6 months. I kept asking her why she would do that when she has a queen-sized bed and a really nice room, but she refused to tell me and started to get annoyed at me for asking. I was confused but decided she was just going through a weird phase or something and went to her room to sleep. I fell asleep pretty fast because I was very tipsy. Then I suddenly woke up in a panic and I could hear drums coming from somewhere in the house. It was around 3 a.m. and everyone was asleep. I got up and left the room to see where the drum noise came from, but the house was silent. I got back into bed, but I felt extremely uneasy and my heart was racing. I laid in the bed for around 15 minutes, trying to fall back asleep, when I heard someone breathing right behind me. My heart stopped and I was completely paralysed with fear. The breathing was only for a second, but I was completely certain something was either standing over the bed or on the bed next to me. After a little bit, I sat up and quickly turned the light on and found nothing in the room. I slept with the light on for the rest of the night. The next morning, I woke up and made some coffee. My sister was eating breakfast at the kitchen bench and asked me how I slept and if I liked her room. Then she asked me if I heard anything. When I asked her why she would ask me that, she just said, "I don't know." I think she's experienced something in her room and was trying to see if I did too. I'm starting to think that's why she has decided to sleep on the couch. I agree. It sounds like the little sister's room is definitely haunted by something, and it sounds like the writer felt it, obviously, whilst they were in there, just intrigued about those drums and what they are and what they mean. And it obviously is frightening the little sister to be sleeping on the sofa, because we all know what teenagers are like in their bedrooms. But great story, and thank you so much for letting us share it. Now on to our fourth story, and this one is from Time Imagination 158. Thanks so much for letting us share your story. We really appreciate it. Are you ready for the fourth story? A memory that will haunt me forever. I'm a guy who doesn't believe in ghosts or paranormal stuff. But what happened to me 15 years ago and my dad on the same night, I cannot explain it. What in the actual hell happened? It gives me chills just writing about this on Reddit. I'll never know, but I thought someone might. I just can't comprehend it, and it terrifies me to the core just thinking about it. So here's what happened. I was 17 and fast asleep at 3 in the morning. I'm sleeping well, but all of a sudden I'm awoken by the sensation someone is choking the living daylights out of me. I can't breathe. I'm panicking and I'm thinking I'm dying. I try to wake up, but I struggle. This thing, with brute strength, has its hands wrapped around my throat and squeezing with all its fury. I think I'm going to die and can't stop it. I try to scream, but I cannot utter a sound as my throat is squeezed so hard. I'm going all faint and feel like my life is slipping away. Then suddenly I manage to scream. "Ah, help!" Then I sit upright in my bed, almost hyperventilating, and feeling very dizzy and nauseous. I feel extremely scared at this point as I sit panting and trying to grasp just what the hell happened to me. Then I hear, "Ah!" and it sounds like my dad. I jump out of my bed and run to my parents' bedroom. My dad sits up in his bed, trembling with fear. I say, "What happened?" He said, "I felt like I was being choked and couldn't breathe." I just stared back at him in complete shock and said, "That happened to me." I'd never felt so much fear and thought I would die that night. It was absolutely terrifying. And it's so hard to talk about this because it still scares me. Now, obviously you could say that it's sleep paralysis, even though I think, like I've said before, I think sleep paralysis has got something paranormal going on because so many people experience the same thing. We can't all experience the same thing, but for both of you to be having it, it's freaky as. And I imagine that seeing your dad shocked and frightened like that was even scarier. Really good story, and thanks again for letting us share it. And the next story is written by NoLoss733. Thanks so much for letting us share your story. I really appreciate it. I also want to say, if I mispronounce the name of the goblin, I'm really sorry. Are you ready for the fifth story? So this isn't my story, as I grew up in the United States, but my cousin from Mexico came to live with us for a while. This is his personal encounter. I'm not a storyteller, so sorry if this is all over the place. Growing up in a Mexican household and having Hispanic friends, I've heard all types of stories. However, as I know my cousin and his family and how they are, I 100% believe this. My mum's sister doesn't mess around and is one of the most serious people I know. Alright, so my cousin, let's call him Jose, he was only a year older than me. He lived in his house along with his parents, older brother and 2 older sisters. As he was the youngest, he was the baby of the family. Therefore, he didn't know what no meant when it came to food. Pretty much he was a very overweight kid growing up. When he was around 8, he and his siblings would all sleep in the same room as the house only had 2 rooms at that time. Over the years, his parents have added areas and rooms to the house, so it's still the same house to this day, only much bigger. He recalls that during this period, he was always extremely fatigued. He would sleep a lot and still wake up feeling exhausted and irritable. He never thought too much into this, as again, he was overweight and figured he was so drained because of that. However, when his siblings would get up at night to go to the bathroom or get water, they would tell him they would see a duende sleeping on his chest. Best way to describe it is a small brown, goblin-like creature. Now, anyone would freak out if they saw this, right? I know I would. But nope. Apparently, this is super common in Mexico and in other Latin American countries. Not only would his siblings see this, but also his parents. Of course, they would do all the religious stuff, such as prayers and cleanses, to keep the duende away. After my cousin told his parents how he was feeling, and his siblings confirming what they saw, they took my cousin to a curandera, a healer in town, who confirmed that the duende was draining my cousin of his energy. Not necessarily maliciously, but more so because he was the youngest in the house. They did quite a few cleanses and rituals, and soon after, the duende no longer slept on him. However, they say he still shows up at the house to this day. Jose also told me there's a picture out there of some family member's house in Mexico, and apparently my own mother, whom is a very honest woman, has seen this picture that shows my cousin and his family standing in front of their house, and you can see the duende at one of the windows in the background. If I ever see this picture when I go visit, I will make sure I take a picture and post it. Still so crazy to me. Now, the most recent encounter gave me chills. This happened about 2 years ago. My cousin's older sister, Anna, has a 6-year-old daughter who at the time was 4 years old. Now, my aunt, being the intense, serious woman that she is, forbid any of her kids, whom are all grown adults of 26 to 33, but again the woman is scary, to tell the grandkids about the duende so they wouldn't be scared to go over to their house. Well, my cousin Anna sent a video of the family group chat of her daughter crying and explaining to her that she went to my cousin Jose's old room and described an ugly brown monster man sleeping in the bed. I saw this video myself with my mum, and we were in such shock that this happened. No one has ever told her about the duende, and yet she described exactly what everyone else had seen. There's a few other sightings that have happened over the years, but just things like seeing this thing sleeping or running by. I've never visited my hometown, but when I do, I will definitely be in full monster hunter mode in my aunt's house, trying to take a picture of this thing. It's so crazy to me, but according to my family and other Hispanic friends who grew up in their own countries, things like this, along with ghosts and witch stories, are all but too common over there. Now, I don't need any idiot commenting how this is fake. This is my family, so I'll be quick to delete this post if it gets any negative comments. I just thought it would be cool to share it, as it still blows my mind. This story really intrigues me, and I love the way that people are just like, yeah, it's just a goblin. We get them all the time. Very sort of everyday thing in life that, yeah, we're just going to have to go and get rid of it somehow. And just sounds like it's really taken in people's stride that they've got these things haunting their houses. I'm not sure I'd be quite so casual about it, I must say. But I loved that. I really did, because I love hearing about different cultures and what goes on. And it's really interesting when it's just taken for granted that, yeah, these paranormal creatures, they're around. We know how to get rid of them. We do this. Yeah, that's what he's suffering from. Scary, but I love it. Thank you again for letting us share that story. Now, our next story is from Bright's Idea 89, even though it's not really that, but that's what it kind of looks like. Thank you so much for letting us share your story. We really appreciate it. Faceless figure in a white hoodie. When I was 12, my family was living in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. It was a typical summer morning where I ran downstairs to shove some breakfast in my mouth before running down the street to my friend's house to hang out. As I'm eating breakfast and telling my mum where I was going, she was acting very strange and asking a lot of questions about wanting to know specifically where I was going to be, who I was going to be with, and to call her when I got there. She was never this particular about knowing the specifics of my whereabouts, and I could tell something was bothering her, so I asked why she was acting so weird. She first tries to brush it off, but my mum and I were pretty close, so I kept prodding. She finally shares with me that she feels off because of a nightmare she had the night before. The details of her dream are below from my mum's perspective. I woke up in our house and our dog was downstairs whining and scratching at the front door, as if she had to go to the bathroom. So I put on my robe, walked downstairs and opened the front door so Emma, the dog, could go out into the front yard and do her business. As I was standing on the front steps of the house, waiting for Emma to finish, I looked down at our street and saw a person in a white hoodie and dark jeans walking up the street towards our house. Every time they would walk under one of the street lights, the light would go out, leaving the rest of the street behind them in darkness. I scooped up Emma and went inside. I locked the front door and went upstairs to look out the window to make sure this person kept going past our house. The person just stopped right in the middle of the street in front of our house, looking directly towards the window, as if it knew I was there. I couldn't see his face under the hoodie, but I felt so unsettled and unsafe, like it was staring right at me and almost into me. Then I woke up. After my mum shares this story, I just brush it off as a weird dream and reassure her that I'll be with my friend and will call her when I get to his house. Fast forward to later that afternoon. My friend and I walked down to the front of our neighbourhood, where an elementary school is. The back part of the playground had a chain-link fence that you could hop over to get into the woods. If you followed the steep slope down through the woods, you would eventually end up at the creek that we would often hang out to find arrowheads, weird bugs, stuff like that. As we were hiking our way down through the woods, we stopped at a halfway point that was a long clearing for a four-wheeler trail that ran pretty far left and right and was just a straight path down. As we stopped for a moment in this opening, my friend and I both saw something white very far down the path, dash uphill between the tree lines, going extremely fast. Way too fast with how steep the hill was and how densely wooded this area was. From what we thought we could tell, it looked to be about the size of a small deer, but we really weren't sure. Seeing that blurred movement of something white in the distance set off the memory of my mum's dream that she told me earlier that morning. I didn't tell my friend anything about it, but I felt a little freaked out and just said we should go the other direction down the four-wheeler trail to get back to the spot of the fence at the playground so we could leave the woods and just go play video games at his house. So we leave the woods, go about our day, and say we'll see each other tomorrow. The next day, my friend and I meet up again and want to go back to the woods and down to the creek. As we're walking across the school's playground towards the fence line to hop back over into that four-wheeler path, we see something hanging on the fence. As we get closer, we see that there is a white hoodie hanging on the fence at the exact spot that we left the woods the day before. I never told my friend exactly why, but from that day on, I never went back into those woods. This event happened over 20 years ago now. I never really shared it with anyone until a couple of nights ago, with some friends and my wife. And their reactions have sent me on a bit of a journey, trying to research if anyone else has reported something similar. I've never tried to put this experience into writing, so hopefully this is all easy to follow. If anyone else has had experiences with being followed or watched by a figure in a white hoodie or something like this, I would love to hear your stories.
Cash flow crunch? OnDeck's small business line of credit gives your business immediate access to funds up to $200,000 right when you need it. Cover seasonal dips, manage payroll, restock inventory, or tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and control over repayment, get funded quickly and confidently. Apply today at OnDeck.com. Funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
This one's a bit spooky, isn't it? Obviously, it was some kind of premonition. What I took from it was that something would have happened if you'd have gone into the woods that day. And it didn't happen. And it was just sort of showing you, here's the white jumper. It's just really strange. And I just feel like you were perhaps really lucky that your mum told you about the dream and you avoided going into the woods. Something feels really dark and ominous about that. Really, really freaky. Thanks again to everybody for letting us share your stories. They're brilliant. I really like this week's stories again. I'll be back again on Monday with Toby. Also, if you want to join us on our social media, the links are all in the podcast notes. The group's coming along nicely. We've got a few people on there now. And if you've got a story you'd like to have featured on the show, you can email it to thewhisperingwoodspodcast@gmail.com. Take care, everyone.
AI is transforming customer service. It's real and it works. And with Finn, we've built the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're seeing lots of cases where it's solving up to 90% of real queries for real businesses. This includes the real-world complex stuff like issuing a refund or cancelling an order. And we also see it when Finn goes up against competitors. It's top of all the performance benchmarks, top of the G2 leaderboard, and if you're not happy, we'll refund you up to $1 million, which I think says it all. Check it out for yourself at fin.ai.
The future of clean energy starts with bold ideas and strong partnerships. On September 15th through the 19th, National Clean Energy Week brings them all together, and you can be a part of it. Discover what's next for America's clean energy leadership. Visit nationalcleanenergyweek.org to learn more.
Some things never go out of style, like trust, reliability, and driving a Toyota. Take the legendary RAV4 and Grand Highlander, designed for maximum space. Hurry in. Offers end September 30th. Toyota, let's go places.